All right, guys, we're here in the garage. We're starting a new series called In the Shop with D. He's a mechanic here in Akron, so what we're going to do is we are going to be replacing the diff covers and the seals in his diff fluid in his Jeep. So one reason to upgrade your diff covers is the stock ones are pretty thin metal, so if you were to come down on a rock or hit a rock head on, it's going to dent in, so you want to put a little beefier diff cover on. It's a very simple process you'll see in this, and I'm going to pass over to Dean. He's going to explain what we're going to be using, the tools, and what it needs to do this process.
Alright guys, so we're going to be installing the TerraFlex diff covers, Dana 30 front, Dana 44 rear. We're going to use the lube lockers, which is basically just a reusable gasket. They're lined with metal on the inside, so you cannot over tighten them. Pretty much guaranteed not to leak. But basically all you're going to need is a ratchet, small extension, and I believe it is a 13mm socket, a drain pan, and something to put the oil in afterwards. I decided to go ahead and use Lucas diff fluid. I went with 75-90 weight. I've just heard really good things about it, so that's what I went with.
So one thing that you have to look into with the diff fluid is a locker or a limited slip. If you want to explain why that is.
It's just a different additive that you have to run. So basically at high heat, the diff fluid wants to break down. So with that additive, it will not break down and ruin your diff or limited slip or whatever you're running, your locker or whatever you have in there.
Okay. So, all right, so we're going to, you don't have to lift the Jeep up for this, right?
No, you do not.
So this is something you do in your garage, like pretty simple stuff. Yeah. Now also to replace your diff fluid, when should we be doing that?
I'd have to look at the manual. I don't even know.
I think it's like every 20 or 30,000 miles.
Yeah, it might be 40,000, I want to say, but I'm not sure on that. Go ahead and look at your manual and you'll know. And
there's a lot of other different rules of thumb on if you're doing a lot of off-roading or really putting a lot of stress on your gears. Yeah. You might want to replace it a little bit more frequently, but for average daily driving use, I think the manual is around 30 or 40,000 miles. But if you do, especially if you are submerging your axles, it's probably a good thing in case any water has leaked into your differential to replace that fluid. It's a very simple process. The only problem is that the fluid is pretty expensive.
It is very expensive.
So, but overall, it's a real simple process and takes about, I'd say, just the diff fluid, maybe 20 minutes an axle. Yeah. But because we're changing out the covers, one advantage with even if you have the covers, you have your upgraded covers, it's still a good thing to every once in a while take the covers off and inspect the gears. On the drain plug, there will be a magnetic, there's a piece of magnet on the drain plug to grab any metal, so if anything is broken and flying around, you'll see it when you do it. But it's also good to inspect that.
Yeah, and also just to have a little bit of metal on there is okay. It's pretty typical. As long as you don't have any big chunks, you're okay.
All right, so here we go. Let's get this process started.
All right, guys. We're going to start at the front. Drain plug is going to be on the driver's side, rear side of the diff. And all you need, 3/8 ratchet, an extension. Slide that in. Let that drain out. Alright guys, same thing on the rear. This one is going to be on the passenger side if you're looking at the back of the vehicle. Alright guys, next step, go around, take all these bolts out. You're going to use a 1/2 inch socket and preferably a 3/8 wrench. I cracked this one loose already. But dig them out. Alright guys, next step, let's take a flat blade screwdriver, pop the cover off after you get all the bolts out. That thing is really on there. There we go. Alright guys, next step, you're gonna take a razor blade and shave off all the silicone you can, and then we're gonna use a Scotch-Brite pad on a little grinder because it will not affect the metal. Get off everything you can. Alright guys, next step, after you get all that cleaned off of there, you're going to run your finger around there. Just make sure there's no big grooves or anything like that that you can feel. And then we're going to take brake clean and clean out the inside of the diff. See, that's what you don't want. Don't want any silicone getting inside your diff. And then after that, you're going to want to check for any chipped or grooved teeth, which all these look good. You'll know right away if you've got a problem inside of here. You'll have excess metal and everything on the drain plug when you pull it out, because the drain plug is actually magnetic, so it picks up those little particles as it's sloshing around all the diff fluid inside there. Alright guys, so we're going to be installing lube blockers on this when we're doing our covers. One of the major features of these things is you install them dry, so you have no use of any other gasket sealers or anything like that. These are actually metal lined, so you cannot crush them. So that means they're basically reusable forever. As long as you do not damage it putting it on, you can reuse it. Alright guys, so what you're going to do is lay that lube blocker on your diff cover. And I like to just start maybe 2 bolts in there. Hold it in place so that way when you know you're putting your next couple bolts in, you're not crushing that gasket. Kind of hard to get these started when you got a cut on your finger. There you go. And then go around, just go ahead and get them all started, and then we'll work our way in a crisscross pattern to tighten these up. Alright guys, got the diff cover on. Now we're going to go around, snug everything down. Always make sure to go in a crisscross pattern. So basically just go opposite of the last bolt you just did. And TerraFlex recommends, just like Jeep does, to go 30 foot-pounds. There's no reason to go that tight, especially with the lube blocker. You don't want to start snapping off bolts and everything else. Go around, make sure everything's snug. Alright guys, next step, we're going to go ahead and fill it. Should take about 2.5 quarts, but we'll see. Basically you just fill it until it starts coming back out. Alright guys, so we're going to move to the back now. Go ahead and take all the bolts out. Doesn't matter which order you take the bolts out in. You're just taking it off, so it doesn't matter. Alright, so getting around the rear track bar can be a little bit of an issue. You can't really get a ratchet or anything up in there. So a 13mm ratchet wrench is pretty much all I got laying around here, but works no problem when taking these bolts off. Gives you plenty of room. And same way with putting it back on. Just go ahead and snug it down with a 13. It'll be fine. Alright guys, so now you're going to take like a flat blade screwdriver or a chisel or something like that, and you're just going to have to work your way around because that silicone holds pretty tight. There we go. It's one way to get it off, I guess. Alright guys, so looking at this, the reason that this is so black is because it is starting to burn up the diff fluid. So what that means is it's starting to break down and it's not actually lubricating your gears, so it's starting to break down your gears and everything. I'm glad we went ahead and did this when we did because my gears, everything still looks okay, but if I would have waited another 20 or 30,000 miles per se, could have had some issues. Alright guys, so the next step after that, after checking everything out, we're going to go ahead and hit everything with brake clean, clean everything out the best we can, and then go around and go ahead and clean all this silicone off. Alright guys, it's going to be the same thing as the front. Go ahead and put your lube blocker on the diff cover. Put 2 bolts in, set it up in there. Put all your bolts in, and then you're going to start and work your way in a crisscross pattern to snug everything down. Alright guys, so we went around and cross-torqued everything here. Remember to put your drain plug back in the back, and then we're going to start filling. So what we're going to do is go ahead and pull both these drain plugs out for now. I'm going to fill it from here, which is your high pinion point. You're not going to fill all the way to there. You're going to fill till it starts leaking out of this hole, and then you'll just put them both back in and you're good to go.
Alright guys, so we're all set here in the garage. Everything is tightened up. We took it for a little bit of a test drive around the block to make sure it didn't seize up and explode on us.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it over to Dee to talk about the fine points to double check to make sure you do and that type of stuff.
Alright guys, so when you're finishing up here, you just want to make sure you do torque all your bolts. They recommend 25 to 30 pounds. but you have to be careful because you can break the heads off the bolts. And then you also need to remember to do in a cross pattern, so go across from each other. That way you're not over tightening just the bottom and then the top. You want that thing to go in and sandwich as flat as possible. And then like we said, we took it around the block, checked for any leaks. Everything was good, so.
Remember to properly dispose of your oil. It's not recommended to take it into your storm drain across the street and dump it down there.
No, it is not.
So where can we dispose of this?
Well, actually, most of your local parts stores will dispose of it for you.
For free.
Yes.
So it's a really good thing. It's easy process. I have a very large container that is now full of about 5 quarts of diff fluid that was a little dirty.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little dirty. So we're going to take that to local AutoZone is what we're going to do and have them drain it for us to properly dispose of. So I think this went fairly well.
Yeah. Pretty simple install. Like we said, pretty much anybody can do this in their driveway or in their garage. So, and they look nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So. And it's nice to upgrade. I actually, during the COVID quarantine, I was bored one April day and I just decided to swap out my diff fluid because I had nothing else to do. So it's a real easy, simple process. So,
absolutely.
All right, well, we look forward to talking to you guys in the future. We got a lot of stuff coming up on this Jeep, I hope, in the next year.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
All right, catch you guys on the trail.
All right, see you guys.